I'm eating junk and watching rubbish.
I'm going to come out and stop you.
What's that rubbish? Angels with Filthy Souls, I think.
Angels with Filthy Souls. He calls it rubbish.
He calls it rubbish.
That.
And he's watching it on VHS, which some would consider rubbish compared to Betamax.
Ooh.
All right.
True. Right you are.
All right. We're starting a war up here now.
That's right.
A format war.
A format war.
Betamax came out in 1975, introduced by Sony, and VHS came out in 1976, a year later, introduced by JVC.
Sony beat them to market in the tape game, in the home video tape game
for the
by a year.
For the first couple years, Sony Betamax basically had 100% market share on the home video front.
That's right.
VHS comes in and there's steep competition with VHS.
That's right. Now, why did VHS win out? You might ask. And it's a complicated question. There are a lot of factors, but we can break it down. So, I mean, in the 70s, when the formats first came out, one factor was that the original VHS tape was 2 hours, could record 2 hours. The original Betamax tape could record 1 hour.
That's right.
That made a big difference. And remember, of course, we're talking the 70s, where this is largely being marketed to people to record things off of television, right? To preserve these things I watch on television and watch them back.
Yeah, early on, it wasn't studio films that were being released onto these tapes. It was because they actually wanted to record things off of TV. It wouldn't be until a few years later that studios would even get into the game of releasing their movies on some form of tape.
And somewhat reluctantly, as we have discussed before.
Yeah, and when they did, they chose VHS or Betamax or both. And I don't know, this is something I also wonder about. Why is it that both formats couldn't exist at the same time? Why was there a format war, and why did one win out?
Sure. I think a big part of this is the two philosophies, the competing philosophies of the companies. Sony really sort of held tight proprietary control over Betamax because Betamax was a superior format technologically. It had more lines of resolution, 250 compared to 240. The Luma was slightly superior. The tapes were manufactured better. And they also had a smaller form factor. They were just a nicer size.
I have seen a few Betamax tapes modern day.
Yeah.
There's something really classy about that small, compact box that contains the Betamax tape.
It is. It's nicer. It's more like the size of like a paperback novel.
Yeah.
The difference was that JVC was licensing crazy. They said, we will license this technology to anybody, and aggressively. They approached other electronics hardware manufacturers and said, we'll license you this.
Yeah.
And JVC pretty quickly saturated the market with the technology. And then what you see now, of course, we've talked about video rental stores before, and we see what we call the network effect, where video rental stores saw that JVC was really saturating the market. More manufacturers were making it because they were able to license it. And so once you start seeing home video releases of films, it's likelier the video rental stores make a bet. They go, well, we don't want to have to. And you asked, why can't we support both? Right? When you're looking at someone in the rental market, you go, well, I don't want to have to buy this title on two competing formats. I want to back a format. And so when the video rental stores adopted the cheaper and the more common format, that has a snowball effect where the consumers go, well, if I don't have this technology yet, but I want to, and the video rental store mostly has VHS, well, I'm going to buy a VHS VCR.
Yeah, and the reason that VHS also was cheaper was because they licensed it out to so many different companies. And so you have all of these different players making the technology cheaper.
Right, and driving the price down.
Yeah, they drive the price down. They're all making the same thing that plays these same tapes. It doesn't matter if you buy RCA, Mitsubishi, JVC, whatever.
Zenith.
Any of these VCRs are going to play the same tape, and it'll play it whether it's JVC or not. Betamax, they just had such an obsession with quality.
That's right.
And they felt very much like the consumer would say, we don't care if VHS is cheaper, it's lower quality, and people are going to come to us because they want higher quality images when they watch their movies back. They also didn't take into account that people really did love that VHS offered longer formats. You could record 2 to 3 hours years at some point on VHS, and Betamax was very slow to follow that up because by elongating it, you're reducing the amount of quality that that product has, and Sony really wanted to hang on to that.
Right. And philosophically, perhaps rightfully so, but ultimately it was the losing battle. There are those who speak to the influence of pornography as well, and that also ties in with the video rental stores. There's mythology mostly to that, but there certainly is a factor that independent producers who were shooting directly to tape go, well, if we don't care about the quality, and in many cases in the pornography industry in particular, they're going, well, we can shoot a lot more on VHS, or we can buy the equipment cheaper, or we can buy the media cheaper. And so if you have a sub-industry that's backing it, that helps make it more the people's format.
Yeah, it does feel like it's this popular myth. You hear people say porn-backed VHS, and that's why Betamax lost out. But when you look at the reasons for why porn producers backed VHS, it's the same reason that consumers backed VHS.
Exactly.
They had longer formats.
Right.
People didn't care as much about the quality. They cared about how much they could get out of a tape.
Keep in mind, too, I mean, we're talking about an era where many people were recording off of broadcast television, and the quality of the broadcast that you were receiving in your household through your bunny ears, right, may have already been snowy, staticky. It may have been a poor signal. As consumers of broadcast media, people were used to not having a really high quality image. Yeah. So it was a hard sell to say, well, you're going to get more fidelity out of this other format, but you're going to have less time. That doesn't mean a lot to the average consumer.
Yeah. And throughout the 80s, you see VHS continuing to make more and more market share when it comes to the home video entertainment. And it feels like the end of the format wars between Betamax and VHS came in 1988 when Sony themselves manufactured their first VHS VCR.
Yep.
And so even they took the license from JVC to make a VCR that played VHS tapes.
So, quick trivia question for you, Jimmy. Do you have any idea what the last Betamax released films were?
Star Wars: A New Hope.
Ah, good guess, but not even close.
Damn.
The very last one, as far as I'm aware of, was Mission Impossible.
Holy cow.
In 1996.
Directed by Brian De Palma. Probably my favorite Brian De Palma film.
You're probably not alone in that. That was an extremely limited, special edition release. I believe the last wide release was True Lies, which was 94. But there was also a niche release, and I mentioned this only for Mr. Producer because I know he's a big fan of the series. Trancers 4. Also 1994 had a very limited, almost legendary Betamax release. So if you find that one, pick it up.
Trancers
4.
Never heard of it.
He's back, hunting through history for a new breed of trancer.
Jack, you all right? What's going on?
How do you feel about the end of the format wars? Do you feel disappointed that Betamax lost out?
Yeah, so as an analog media enthusiast, I am disappointed. I do think that there's hardly any argument to be made that Betamax wasn't the superior format. And I think the VHS victory, to me, in many ways is the birth of the good enough standard in technology.
Yeah.
We see this shift where society sort of collectively decides that the lower barrier to entry is more important, it's more valuable than the superior quality. And we have seen that trend continue into the digital era, right? I mean, trading CDs for MP3s. That's a huge convenience over quality thing. AIFF, lossless, uncompressed audio for your music versus highly compressed audio, but an MP3, I don't have to have a bunch of CDs on my shelf. I don't have to carry a big book with me everywhere I go. I've got all my music in my pocket. And that convenience for the average consumer is more valuable. And same with Blu-ray versus streaming, right? If the quality is good enough, then the convenience factor wins out in the marketplace. I think that's really the takeaway for me is, yes, Betamax was a superior format, but today's market and yesterday's market just didn't reward superior engineering if it's a trade-off for utility.
Yeah.
The irony, of course, is that nowadays we are left with a more fragile media legacy because of it. Because everything we hope to preserve by committing it to tape in the 80s and 90s, well, now it's just inherently more fragile because it's on VHS, because it's on the inferior medium. We traded longevity for lower costs, and we traded durability for convenience. And that's our state of the world. So, you know, feel good about that when you go to bed tonight.
I'm going to go out and get a Betamax player.
Good luck.
Okay.
Good luck.